Hello and welcome to An Old Man Watches, and today I'm going to be talking about the British miniseries House of Cards from 1990. And in this show we meet Francis Urquhart, who is Chief Whip of the Conservative Party. That means that whenever there is a vote in the UK's national parliament, Urquhart is the one responsible for making sure that all of the Conservative Party MPs, their representatives for any American listeners, follow the party line and vote as the leadership intends and expects. And the series begins just as the Conservative Party has won a narrow election victory and been re-elected to government after a change of leadership. Now, for his long and sterling service to the party in general, and for his contribution to its recent electoral success in particular, Urquhart is expecting a senior role in the new administration. And he has reason to have such expectations. The new party leader has made him promises to that effect. However, the incoming Prime Minister reneges on those promises, insisting that Urquhart is too valuable in his current role and the government could not survive without him as Chief Whip. Now, Urquhart initially dismisses this sentiment as a meaningless platitude, but his wife disagrees. She tells him there's more truth in it than he realises, that he has the skills and the opportunity to bring down the Prime Minister and take the job for himself. And so begins a Machiavellian scheme to seize the most senior political position in the country, with Urquhart utilising all the advantages of his current role to discover and exploit the weaknesses of the current Prime Minister and of any colleague who might be a competitor for the role were it to become available. So these days, the American show of the same name and based on the same Michael Dobbs novel is probably much better known than this series. But the UK adaptation was a big success when it first aired 30-some years ago. Ian Richardson won the 1991 BAFTA for the Best Actor for his performance as Urquhart, and the show's writing picked up an Emmy. It also was successful enough to spawn 2 sequel series, each adapted from further novels by Dobbs. But it is now over 30 years old, as I said, and television has changed a lot in the last 3 decades. How does it stack up today? Something of a mixed bag. Let's start with the positives. So sometimes watching older television shows brings home the fact that performance expectations and norms have changed a lot, and this is certainly true with British television. I remember in the mid-80s that my family were huge fans of the then current show Howard's Way, for instance, whereas when we saw it again, probably about 10 years ago, the acting felt very stilted, affected, and was quite painful to watch at times. It felt like a high school production, almost. Now, not every performance in House of Cards is entirely immune to that more stagey style of yesteryear, but the leads are very good. Ian Richardson thoroughly deserved his BAFTA win, delivering a charismatic performance that manages to seem natural, even when it's at its most unnatural, which is when he's breaking the fourth wall to directly address the audience. Now, this element of the story was an innovation of the scriptwriter. The original novel was written entirely in standard third-person prose, didn't have Urquhart as a point-of-view character at all, certainly not directly addressing the reader. And it's a vital technique to establishing a sense of scheming complicity between the nefarious Urquhart and the audience. We, in effect, become his silent partners in his double-dealing and skullduggery. Now, Richardson is ably supported by the other senior cast members, in particular Susanna Harker as the ambitious young reporter Mattie Storin, who becomes Urquhart's chief ally and supporter while remaining oblivious to his more sinister side. Harker conveys just the right combination of intelligence and ambition and credulity that is needed for the role. It's not an easy needle to thread, so, props to her for doing a really good job. The dialogue is overall a strength of the series. It's full of quotable moments. The most famous, or perhaps infamous, being, "You might very well think that, I couldn't possibly comment." An affirmation that admits nothing and which has become part of the UK's political language. But it's far from alone. There is, for instance, Urquhart's monologue to camera about his decision to begin an affair with Mattie Storin in order to more tightly win her loyalty and assistance, where he says, "She trusts me absolutely. I trust that she does. And I trust her absolutely, to be absolutely human." Now, this seduction is another innovation of the screenwriter. and one that my wife found quite creepy when we watched it. I can understand why. Ian Richardson was over twice the age of Susanna Harker at the time, and their characters were similarly of very different generations. Now, to be fair, a nearly as large age gap existed between the actors of the analogous roles in the US version, and this did not provoke quite the same reaction. Perhaps this is because the reporter Zoe Barnes in the US version never called Frank Underwood Daddy, which Susanna Harker's character does here. That does indeed add an extra element to proceedings. I did say the quotes were memorable, not that they were wholesome. Now, the part of the show that has probably aged the worst is the plot. I can give the fact that it is notably dated by political and technological developments that make many of the main characters' ploys impossible today. It was a product of its time, and it was set in those times. Still, even in the context of the late 80s, early 90s, I think a number of the plot elements are dubious in their authenticity. In particular, for a group of supposedly sophisticated politicians, Urquhart's rivals sure do leap eagerly into the traps he lays for them. Every single one of them seems completely oblivious to the possibility that Urquhart might be the one behind their troubles. Whoever it is, it can't be Francis. The script has them all basically say, sometimes literally say, he's a party man through and through, loyal to the bone. And while I can certainly accept that his perception might help his earlier stratagems succeed, I find it hard to credit that the simple fact that every development directly profits Urquhart wouldn't set off a few alarm bells eventually. And this is one element where, at least in the first couple of seasons, I think the US version was stronger. The longer format and different structures of US politics allowed the writers to throw more setbacks and challenges in Frank Underwood's way. Setbacks and challenges that Francis Urquhart never had to face. Ultimately, this is good but flawed, a mixed bag. Some very good performances, some great moments, but not the most convincing plotline overall. It is, though, much shorter than the US version and much less varying in quality. What you see in the first hour is pretty much what you see in the last hour. Both of those factors might well count in its favour for a prospective viewer. Next time, we turn from a mini-series about a fictional political monster to a movie about a real one, the 2004 German film Downfall. But that's next time. Until then, thanks for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it.